Hello everyone, Paul Elam here with another episode from A Voice for Men. Among the many emails I get that don't support men's rights or don't support my personal take on them, a hefty number of them are from men who take issue with the idea of other men shedding traditional masculine expectations and going their own way. The common theme among those emails is a short lecture on what men are supposed to do, replete with "Sonny, let me tell you what it means to be a real man" instructions. Most of them are written with enough swagger and brio to make John Wayne smile. As David Letterman once said of Jack Benny, even in his current condition. And curiously, many of the concordant emails I get from women totally miss the point as well. I just read one from a woman who lauded my work against feminism because she lamented the loss of days when a man knew how to treat a lady. Apparently, she thought my objection to feminism was because it kept me off a white horse. She assumed I'm engaged in a fight to protect my right to sacrifice for her, like a real man. A glaring misunderstanding indeed, but she did provide an opportune segue for the correct question. What if a man doesn't want to? When all is said and done, this is the question that speaks to the heart of a growing voice, not just in the world of men's rights activists, but in the world of men in general. And it is the first of many questions that are sure to form tempests of debate and ire in the coming years. Should men break with tradition, and in that should they quit expecting themselves to be the financiers and custodial protectors of women's lives? Should they quit paying for dates? Should they refuse assignment to the role of breadwinner? Are men supposed to be congenital bodyguards, socially and biologically indentured in a world where women no longer need such protection? Indeed, we now live in a world where it is men that increasingly need protection from women, as it is clear in family courts, the workplace, universities, think Duke and Hofstra, and frequently their own homes. The answers to these questions, which are, like it or not, relevant now, require some intellectual scrutiny that won't be found in myopic edicts like "be a real man." In fact, I'd argue that anyone issuing such proclamations needs to take a more lucid look at the world in which they live. And it would help to have a more cogent understanding than some of the emails I get would demonstrate. First, I think it is critical to understand that feminism doesn't keep any man off a white horse. Quite the contrary. Feminism seeks to keep you mounted and chained to the saddle of that utilitarian stallion, whether you want to be there or not. Look, it's about time we start to understand that feminism isn't the enemy of masculinity. It is, rather, a twisted and corrupted exploitation of it. Chivalry was a code that men lived by to protect and provide for women and children, at least in part. Feminism is an ideology that is sought with a great deal of success to bind you to that code with no commensurate benefit. And they use traditional masculine muscle to make sure you, by God, comply. When a woman makes a false allegation of domestic abuse during a divorce, she gets an ex parte restraining order issued without proof and takes your property, children, assets, and income without any due process or just cause. It isn't Jessica Valenti and her sisters that she sends after you. It's gun-toting state functionaries from an almost exclusively male justice system represented by male cops that will take you to jail with male keepers. When your woman becomes violent, the police will most likely come and arrest you. They do this under the auspices of primary aggressor laws, which I will cover at another time. But suffice it to say for now that those laws quite simply translate into arrest the man no matter what the circumstances. And these guys slapping the cuffs on you will feel righteous and heroic for what they're doing. It's not because they're feminist, and this is a most crucial point to understand, but because they are being chivalrous, because they know how to treat a lady. They are nothing more than useful idiots, genetically programmed puppets. It is the modern paradigm of chivalry on crack, and the men doing these things don't see themselves as anything less than good men playing the role that good men are supposed to play. Women, on the other hand, don't have roles anymore except as they choose to take them on. Even then, they can change their role at will, depending on whether they are vying for a promotion or sitting with a man in a restaurant when the dinner check arrives, depending on whether they are playing the empowered, unstoppable woman or the pitiful, helpless victim that needs the state to destroy your life so she will feel safe and so that she will feel solvent. Despite all its disingenuous claims, feminism and self-sufficiency do not live under the same roof. Feminism is simply a distortion of human biology that uses femininity to plunder the lives of men without having to compete with them fairly or reciprocate for what they take. It's carte blanche opportunism that leeches off the mandate of men to act with honor. It is the new but no longer sparklingly new social doctrine of equality plus. When we were kids, we used to call it getting the bigger half of the candy bar, except they want the whole thing, save for barely enough to keep you laboring and providing more candy bars. Now, this is not to cast men as the victims of women. As I've tried to make clear, all this is enabled lock, stock, and barrel by men rigidly maintaining their traditional roles, giving women whatever they ask for by rote. In fact, were it not for men engaging in this mindless form of collective patricide, feminism would have been deservedly quashed at least 30 years ago. Real men would have not tolerated all this nonsense for a minute. The catch-22 of this affair, however, is glaringly obvious. The traditional mindset, previously more tempered by reason, had served as the foundation of stable families and adjusted children for countless generations. It is indeed an area where expressions like the fabric of our society and the backbone of our civilization are not just tired and overused metaphors, but spot-on descriptions of reality. That in and of itself might appear to be a sound reason for men to just shut up, shovel, and sacrifice, to labor for what has worked in the past as though the last 40 years never happened. But that's the problem, guys. The last 40 years actually did happen. The toothpaste is already out of the tube, and trying to squeeze it back in is a noble and pathetically stupid waste of time. Now, I'm not saying that traditional roles can't work. They can for a waning few, those willing to find their way to each other through the modern morass of traditions in a world that has been largely stripped of them. But it is a gamble with Las Vegas odds and therefore should be a choice. I honor men who have managed to make traditional relationships work, but I don't infer on them a license to point at me and say I have to do it too. And until men start to imagine a world in which they can choose what they want to be rather than having others choose it for them, we will continue to see misandry and feminism stab them in the back with more than likely their male brothers holding the knife. And the way out of this is simple and clear. When enough men find themselves paying for dinner with women who earn more than them and can use the government to come after them for even more, there will likely be a lot more that say, hey, wait a minute. It really seems like such a small thing, but in the realm of a new direction for men, it would be a giant step in the right direction. Well, that's it for another episode from A Voice for Men. As always, I do hope you've enjoyed this little talk, and we'll see you next time.